Well, the world has still gone nutty, buddy, even downright cruddy, buddy. Wish I missed the past, buddy, but there's still Buddycast. No, don't be nutty, go meet everybody here on Buddycast.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the founder and host of Buddycast, Nick Sorensen.
Welcome back, buddies, to another episode of everybody's favorite show, Buddycast. I'm your host, Nick Sorensen, and joining me today is a new buddy who actually is a fan of Buddycast, Kyle Churman. How you doing today, buddy?
Doing great, buddy. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks for being on the show. I love promoting local businesses. So, for our buddies who don't know, Kyle is the owner of Werner Books. So, how did that come to be? You told me a good story about that off air.
Yeah, crazy story. So, prior to owning the bookstore, I was working at WQON, which talk about a great job. You know, you get to work for NPR and PBS and all the great people up there. But I was like, well, what could be cooler than this? So a friend of ours who's a regular at the store, she reads like 10 books a week. She's crazy. She popped in the one day. I was talking to the owner, and Gail said, "Hey, I'm looking to retire. Kelly's about my age, pretty young." And, she said, "Oh, we're going to, I'm looking to retire." And Kelly's like, "I can't buy your store. That's insane. I'm not going to buy your store." And then she goes, "Wait a second. I have friends that might be interested in buying a bookstore." And so my wife and I emailed Gail Werner, the previous owner, and set up a meeting, and we talked to her. And for about 6 months, we worked on, all the fun stuff, financing and lawyers and all the other things that taken. And, we've owned the store now for like 5 months. So it was really just been an awesome transition. And Gail's been a huge mentor to me. In fact, today, when I pulled up to my house to do the podcast, she was out front unloading books about how to run a bookstore onto my front porch. So, we were set up, I think, to succeed because we already had a great, point of reference and a great person to help us out. So, yeah, it was hard to leave QON. I mean, you talk about a good group of people, but they all understood, if one group of people is going to understand you leaving to go buy a bookstore, it's the people that run PBS.
Yeah. So it's an educational purpose. I think they're okay with it,
Yeah, they're just fine with me leaving. So
yes. So do you know the history behind Werner Books?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So Gail, the previous owner, she has actually opened and sold 2 bookstores in her lifetime. So the first one was Tattered Corners, which is down in Meadville, which if you all haven't checked it out, check it out. It's also a really nice store. So she opened that about 20 some years ago. And then, when her family was ready to move up to Erie, they moved to Erie. She sold the store. And then she opened Werner Books in 2011, I want to say 2010, 2011. So the store's been open for 11, 12 years. And then she's been doing this forever, her whole life, for a long time. And, it's been a great story. I mean, it's been in the Liberty Plaza all that time, which we're still there. And, she knows everything. She's read everything. So now I have to catch up. I read everything. So it's been a lot of fun, but no, it's just a great location. And we have a great group of regular customers that come in all the time, but then we also have a staff. The staff stayed on with us, and some of the staff has been at Werner Books. Mia and Ginny, for sure, that still work with us, have been there since the opening. So they've been at the store all those years. So
they know the deal. They know what's going on. They
know more than I do. Today we were away on vacation last week, and people said, "Oh, you just bought a store. You can't go on vacation." No one does that. And I was like, "Yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be there." I talked every day to them, but I didn't have to worry about the store operating day to day. They've been doing this for years, so it's just so nice to have them. And then, our other employee, Shar, is the same way. Her and Jenny are sisters. They're both retired. And, between the three of them, I trust them to all the time. I trust them to do everything. They're great. So, I'm just the one that has to pay the bills.
Nice. They're definitely your buddies, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Now, who are some of your favorite authors? Who are some of your favorite people to read,
Yeah. So I've got my shirt on. I don't know if you can see it. My Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy t-shirt, which is my favorite book. So it's funny because I don't read sci-fi all that much, but my favorite book is a sci-fi book. So that's my favorite book, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. When I was a kid, I read everything. Like, no joke, Berenstain Bears, Magic School Bus, take your pick. I read every book. My brothers, actually, I have 3 older brothers, and they teased me for 90% of my life. They still do. I mean, we're in our 30s and they're still making fun of me, but they used to tease me because they would just be like, oh, all you do is read. You just read books all the time. All you do is sit around and read books. And I'm just like, yeah, now, my mom said to them the other day, said, yeah, you're making fun of your brother all the years, and now he owns a bookstore. So I think we're good. So, right now, one of the rules I have for myself is I read everything that people recommend to me, because, a lot of times people will come to the store and they'll say, oh, I read X. Could you recommend Y? Right. Or I read author A. Could you recommend author B? Right. And so I have kind of an unwritten rule for myself, which is if someone recommends an author or a genre, I will pick it up and read it. So I just read what did I just read that I really, really liked? A book by Janet Ivanovic, who's like kind of a romance thriller kind of writer, which I never thought in a million years I would read a book by her, but it was great. It was really funny. It was good. I read the first book in various series. I just read a book by Louise Penny, which is a mystery writer. Same thing. Never thought I would read a book by her, but it's really good. And now when people come and say, hey, I like, mystery writer X, can you recommend someone? Yeah, Louise Penny. But the current author I'm obsessed with is this author named Emily St. John Mandel, and I can't let it go without mentioning her. She's written a handful of books, but 3 are kind of more famous than others. 3 are more recent. The first one's Station 11, which is about a pandemic, but it's really, really good, and it's one of the better books, one of the best books I've read. And then they just made an HBO show out of it. And then the Glass Hotel, which I'm currently reading. And then this book, Sea of Tranquility, which she put out this year, which for me is a top 5 book I've ever read in my life. So it's really incredible. So the nice thing for me being in the bookstore every day is I get to pick up new books. I get to pick up older books that people have recommended to me. And I read all the time. And my wife, Lauren, is a college English professor. So got the day job. So now she gives me a hard time because she's been recommending books to me for years. And I was like, I don't want to read that. I don't know if I want to read that. And now I read them. And she's like, see, it wasn't that good. I'm like, yeah, you're always right. The books you recommend are always good. So, it's kind of been nice because when they come in used, especially because we're a used bookstore, I can pick it off the shelf, take it home, read it in a day or 2 and put it back on the shelf, So it's been a lot of fun to do that.
Awesome. I was about to ask you, if you're a used bookstore, what's your buyback program? Like, can someone come in? Hey, I've got all these books. I used to love reading them, but they're just taking up too much room on my shelf. Or, I think it's time for the next owner.
Bring your books to me. So we have an exchange program. So basically what we do is if you bring me in a book, used or, you just bought it and you're like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to bring it back. We're going to give you store credit. So the way it works is 25% of the cover price is going to be, you're going to get in credit, which you set up an account with us. It's all computerized now. And then you can use that on any used book in the store. And about 85% of our books are used. So most of the books in the store are used. So if you pick up a used book, you're going to get half off with your credit. And the credit really never goes away. So, you still have to spend a little bit of money. That's one thing sometimes people are like, wait a second, I thought I could. Well, we need to make some money in order to. But if you have $10 in credit and you buy $10 worth of used books, you're going to pay $5, but you're going to get $5 off, right? So we take all kinds of books. One of the things I warn people I do not like is hardcover fiction books, just because they take up way too much space on my shelf. So, anything else though, I'll take. So people bring in, in fact, this morning I was at the store and a woman brought me in 3 boxes of children's books. Her kids are kind of getting older, and we always have a need for used children's books because we do a couple of things with them. One of the things, we sell them all for about $2. So, a lot of used children's books we sell for $2, which if you have credit is $1, and that's a really good deal. We also do about half, a little less than half of the school book fairs in the county.
Ooh.
So, so we do a lot of those, and I take one of the reasons that a lot of the schools like to work with us is A, I can customize it for them, but B, I can take used books. So if you have a kid that comes in as like $5, $6, and they want to walk out the door with some books, they can still buy a couple books. Whereas if you're with a company that does only new books, they're way more expensive. Mm-hmm. So I will bring new books with me, but I also bring the used books, which is a huge asset, especially some schools, where, the income level is a little less, we're able to kind of work with them, and we have some great relationships. And Gail had been doing that for years. I'm continuing that. But then the other thing we do with our books is, and people have probably seen us out. If not, come visit us. We do some markets. So we do the Leaf Market over at Frontier. The one at Copper Carriage in the spring. We did the night market for Cycle Fest. We do a lot of those, and we take some just general books that we don't wrap up or do anything, but we also do 2 programs. One we call Blind Date with a Book, which is it's people love it. It's really cool. And this was all, it's not something that we came up with. It's an idea that's existed, but my wife was like, we're doing this and it's going to be great. I said, okay, I believe you. So we wrap up books, used books in brown paper, so you can't see what it is. We write a little description. So we'll write, mystery thriller, female detective, murder case, or whatever. And then we sell those. If they're hardcover, we sell them for $4. Paperbacks are $3. And then people will, you come up and you go, oh, I'd like a mystery thriller, the female detective that solves a murder case, right? And my wife puts nice ribbon on them, so they always look really nice. I'm not allowed to write on the books, write the description, because my handwriting is shaky. We want them to actually look nice. Mm-hmm. And, so people come up and they buy the books and they say, oh, great, especially if you're looking for something new. And they're, $3, $4. So it's like, oh, if you've already read it, we always say, just give it to someone, pass along to a friend, Or if you're like, oh, I don't think I'd like this book. We're like, why'd you pick it up to begin with? You knew what was in it, So, but the other thing we do with the children's books is we do what we call mystery bags. So we'll put 10 picture books or, 6 kids chapter books or early readers or whatever. We do all those different age groups, and we'll put them in a brown paper bag and we'll sell them for $5. So, if you're a parent, you're like 50 cents a book's a pretty good deal. So, we do that a lot, and that's been really successful and people really like that. So we found some ways to kind of do some unique things, with books that I think people are like, oh, never thought to do that. We have such a stock of used books that for us, we're like, we have it, let's go get it. So.
Nice. Now I got to ask, do you ever sell from local authors, anyone in the area that you know of that you really like to promote or really love having in your store?
Nick, you're going to get me in trouble on this one because I got to go through my list and I'm going to get in trouble for all the authors I'm not going to mention. So for everyone I miss, don't kill me. Y'all are the best. So we have a huge local section. So we have 3 shelves worth of local books. That we, either buy local authors or about local topics. So for instance, there's a book that just came out by a woman named Leanne Ruggiero. She was just in the store on Sunday. She wrote a book. She's from Harbor Creek, but she lives in Wyoming. Mm-hmm. So she teaches school there. So she's actually in town this week. She's doing an event at the library, and she came and did a signing. Her new book's called Unfollowers. But I'll give you the quick rundown of local authors, but everyone should come check them out. But we have the most popular book right now in the store is Judge Dan Brabender's book, Eerie Sensational Murder Trials. We've sold about 300 books, and the book's been out for about 3 months. So really popular, about 9 murder cases. Another local author, Justin Dombrowski, wrote a book called Murder and Mayhem in Erie, PA, which is really great. So him and Dan, luckily, wrote about different murder trials, which is good. Dom DePaulo's written a couple really good books. Obviously, the Pizza Bomber book is pretty popular still. Joe Kress. So Joe Kress, another one where I joke I have a shelf of eerie true crime books. And then, we have our Presque Isle books. Eugene Ware and Dave Frew both have written a lot of books from two different angles about Presque Isle. But the other cool thing Eugene Ware did is him and an illustrator, Randy Austin, have written two. They're working on the third children's books called Tucker and Ripley. And if you come into the store, we painted our back wall with a chalkboard wall. And I hired Randy to illustrate Tucker and Ripley. Tucker is a turtle and Ripley is a rabbit. And the first book, they go to Presque Isle, and the second book is Asbury Woods. And I'm not going to spoil the third one. But that's a really good, just an awesome thing to have, and people love those. And then actually a buddy of yours, we have a mutual buddy, Dave Gorman.
Yep, I was about to ask about him.
Yep, Baltimore Mystery Files.
Yep.
He just announced in fact, it was on your show, I found out the fourth one. He wouldn't tell me, by the way, until he announced it here. So Dave, just so you know,
exclusive.
Yeah, couldn't have told me first. I understand. We'll let it happen. But no, we the Baltimore Mystery Files. You talk about a great set of kids books, and for anyone that wants more details, I'd say just listen to the episode with Dave because it's great. So
yes, and I have read those books too. I'm a guy. If you promote your product on this show. And
sure.
It's like, hey, it's a book. Why not check it out? I read the first one, and by the end of it, I'm like, gotta check out the second one now. You know?
Yep.
They're fantastic because they are kids' books, but at the same time, they're like, wait, what happens next? Like, wait, what took a turn or something like that. Like, like when you're reading to a kid or something, then it's like, wait, what happened to the pink turtle or something like that? You know what I mean? Like,
I still say to this day that the most thrilling book that's ever been written in the world is There's a Monster at the End of This Book with Kroger.
Yes.
James Patterson and Agatha Christie. No, Monster at the End of This Book. It's the most thrilling book. When you get to the end, you're like, didn't see it. It's so good. Even today, I was talking to a woman about that the other day. She was buying it for a baby shower, and she had never seen it. Or she didn't have kids. She said, I've never seen it. And I was like, just read it real quick. And she was like, it's so good. It's one of the best books ever. Yeah. So, there is a great local authors community in town. We do our best to support them. One of the things we do is we carry their books. So, another one's Chuck Pora. I can't not mention Chuck. Anyone that worked at the Times, Chuck worked at the Times for like 1,000 years. Chuck's written some really good stuff too. Because Chuck will be mad if I don't mention Chuck.
I'll get in touch with him, see if he knows my grandfather. Or see if he knew my grandfather.
He's written, one of the things Chuck's done, he's written a lot of books about growing up in Erie in the 60s, which I think people really like. And so there's a lot of really good authors out there in town writing really good things. And the other nice thing is they all talk to each other, get along with each other. There's a really nice authors community in town. Which I think is really important. There's also this really great poetry community in town. So one of the things we've done, and I'll promote it here on the show, is Mabel Howard, who hosts a lot of poetry events throughout town, works with Erie Arts and Culture, also runs Cafe 710. So some of the best desserts you will eat in the city. Mabel is hosting a poetry night at our store on 814 Day. So actually on Sunday, on the 14th, at 7:00. So she is really well connected into the Erie poetry community. And then, the other group we work with locally is we work with a lot of the theater groups. So for instance, we're a sponsor for Drama Shop's book club this year. And I've actually known Zach Flock, who is the founder and was the creative director until this past year at Drama Shop. And I actually have a meeting tomorrow with them to kind of go over everything for their groups. So there's a lot of different ways to tap into reading and arts and poetry and all this stuff in town. I mean, Erie's theater community alone, makes bigger cities just look terrible. I mean, ours is so strong and so good that it's nice to have all those different groups. And, we kind of fit in as well into that, by just, offering a space, right, for folks to come in that either have published books, right, And then also, to have an event space as well in a bookstore. So there's a lot of cool stuff going on in that space. But yeah, one of the things people, as soon as they come into the store, they immediately radiate towards our local authors section. And the Dan Berrybender's book has been just incredible. The amount of books that I've sold, I've run out so many times that I have to text him. I'm like, Dan, you got to bring me more books. You got to bring me more stuff. But it's been really good. It's been really popular. So, there's a lot of other good stuff. But yeah, for folks that live in Erie, especially Erie locals, there's, or even people that used to live in Erie, right, and moved away. You can still tap into, Erie by reading some of these books by these local authors, and they're great. I can't speak highly enough about them. So
brilliant. Now I have one book that I have in mind that I'm wondering, I think I know you sell it, but I just want to confirm. Do you have the book on the pizza bomber?
Of course. Yeah. In fact, it's funny. I actually have to put in an order. I think I have one left. So if you need it, Nick, I got one left. But no, there's I got to put in an order for them tomorrow. So I got to order a bunch more of them. But yeah, no, so we have that one. And actually, the book, The Unholy Murder of Ash Wednesday by Dom DePaulo. If you like the Pizza Bomber book, that one is another one that will knock your socks off. And that one's really, really good. Dom wrote a really great book. So, but yeah, the Pizza Bomber book is great. Jerry and Ed, just, you talk about, a story, right? I argue that, there's no one better to write that book than Jerry, and luckily he stumbled onto Ed, who, himself is the writer. So you've got the detective on one side, and you've got the, Ed's the writer, and they just kind of took that and, and they have pictures, right? Pictures are always good. You're like, okay, this is what was going on. And, it's a tragic event in the history of Erie, but it's so compelling, right? My wife always tells the story of the Pizza Bomber that she was a college freshman. It was her first day of freshman year, was the move-in day down at Slippery Rock, which is where she went, but also is now where she works, which is pretty cool. But she was there as a freshman, her first day, and it was the day of the robbery and everything that went on that day with the Pizza Bomber. And so she gets down there, and they're like, meeting all these new people. Oh, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Erie. But did you see what happened in Erie today? She was like, no, what happened in Erie today? She wasn't even paying attention. And they were like, are you kidding me? It's all over the news. She was like, I don't know. So that was her connection to the Pizza Bomber. And for me, I'm not actually from Erie originally. I grew up outside of Pittsburgh, and I only moved up to Erie in college, and pretty much have never left. I left a couple years for graduate school, but knew that I was going to come back. So, for me, it was always really important to stay in Erie.
Nice. Talk about another mutual buddy. Jerry Clark was also on the show. He was one of the first few episodes. And what I love about him, it wasn't like, oh, that's kind of classified, buddy. I wish I could tell you that. It's like, everything's out in the open. What do you want to know? What can I offer you? What can I do for you? There's no information. There's no question you could not ask me that I've never heard before. And if so, it's still like, hey, it's open info. So no one's, So he was very into it, and you just imagine that day of work. Imagine just your average day. All of a sudden you get a call about a bank, some bank robbery or something and that whole thing just flies down, especially the documentary too. Just watching that.
Intense. It's a gut punch. And that's why I sell books for a living now, Nick, and worked at WQN and college admissions. I am not fit to do any of those jobs that involve, anything intense at all. The most intense thing I do every day is pick up a box of books and carry it to the back. So, I'm good. I hats off to those guys and Jerry, because I'm like, no, not for me. I'm glad someone does it. I'm glad it's not me.
But that kind of brings up a question to me. Have you, there's a ton of movies that are based off of books, or a ton of, TV shows based off of books. Have you ever found yourself kind of like me, where you read the book and then you'll watch the movie, you'll read a Harry Potter book and then you'll watch that movie afterwards, and you kind of find yourself like, wait a minute, what's this part? Or a little disappointed or something, like they left out this, or what does this have to do with anything?
So my wife and I are big TV watchers as well. We watch a lot of TV, and one of the things that we, one of the things we found is there are some, and actually it's funny you bring that up because my wife, one of the things she teaches her freshmen at Slippery Rock is adaptation theory. So she actually does that when she teaches them in her freshman English courses. They do a lot of the time they'll do like Beauty and the Beast or Little Red Riding Hood or Frankenstein, right? Things like that, and talk about all the adaptations that have come. And sometimes they're really well done. And you're like, oh, great. The big one right now is Where the Crawdads Sing, which is an awesome book. I absolutely love the book. I have not seen the movie, and I'm a little nervous because I heard it was just okay. And then, you have others where sometimes the adaptation is better, right? You've got, I'm trying to think of some that, off the top of my head, like Fight Club's a great book, but the movie is really, really good. And a lot of it's just the acting, right? I mentioned Station 11, Emily St. John Mandel. It's one of my favorite books. And the book, it's funny, I always talk about that one because the book has some relationships and some other things in it that are not in the TV show. So HBO did a TV show last year, and they both work. Like it's crazy how they kind of took the source material and made it a very different show, and it's still really good. And the message is kind of the same, but there's some things I didn't like about it. But overall, I was like, wow, they did a really nice job of taking this and making that, right? I tend to like to read the book first before I see the show or the movie. But I also tell people all the time, like what you like, I never will judge someone on what they read, what they watch, whatever, because you're not me, I read everything. I've been reading romance novels too, recently, which are actually pretty good. I'm kind of into them. And I never thought I would read that. And, people say, oh, I like this movie or I like this book, would I like this? And I'm like, maybe, you might not, you might like it, it's all personal taste. In fact, I did see the other day, we were at Shakespeare Summer Nights for Gannon does it, Shoots Your Theater over in Frontier Park. So we went over, was it 2 weeks ago now? Because we were gone last week. So yeah, 2 weeks ago, we went over to check out, they did The Tempest, which is my wife's favorite Shakespeare play. And Lauren was like, I really want to see their adaptation of it. And she was really into it. Like she was like, I'm surprised they did the full Shakespearean, in terms of the accents and everything, and the language they used, but it was really well done and they put on a great show. So, I always say just find art in some way, shape or form, whether you like it or not. And there are some that are real duds. Like I read The Goldfinch, which is an awesome book by Donna Tartt. It's 700 pages. So if you don't have time, don't read it. But they made a movie about it, or a movie adaptation of it, and it was so bad. Nick, it was so bad. Don't watch the movie. But that's a few where I'm like, okay, just read the book. It's fine. But, also you take 700 pages and you make it into a thing. But, there have been some really good ones. Twilight is getting a resurgence. People really like Twilight again, which is cool. Harry Potter, the movies are good. The new ones aren't, but the original 7 are good, right? I guess 8 movies. Wow, they made a lot of movies. And then Lord of the Rings has a show coming out, right? So there are some things that, you can make it work, but I always tell people, come in, pick up the book, see what you think, see if you like it. So.
Exactly. Now, buddy, I'll be right back. We got to play a quick word from our sponsors, but don't go anywhere.
All right.
This Buddycast is brought to you by Harbor Ridge Golf Course. If you're in the Erie area looking to play a quick 9, sharpen your skills on the putting green or driving range, or looking to play playing golf while having some quality time with buddies, head over to Harbor Ridge at 3730 Harbor Ridge Trail. When you're finished, head over to the Harborview Grill to enjoy a good meal, some live music, a gorgeous view of Lake Erie, and some more good times. Call them today at 814-898-4653. Tell my buddy Adam that Buddy sent you.
And that was Harbor Ridge Golf Course. Do you golf at all, Kyle?
I do, actually. I've only golfed 3 times this year.
Oh, nice. You got it. Have you ever been to Harbor Ridge?
I have, yeah. It's a great course. It's a great course. Glad they're sponsored. They're awesome. Yeah, no, I play all over Erie. I don't, some people say, oh, I'm a member at X, Y, and Z, and I only play at X, Y, and Z. And I'm just like, I play wherever. I go and I take my clubs and I go play wherever anyone tells me, hey, we're going to meet up, we're going to play golf. I'm like, all right, I'll meet you there. No, I don't care. My stepdad plays and has been playing at the same golf course back home outside of Pittsburgh for like 40 years. And he plays, now he's retired, he plays every day. And so when I go play him, he always beats me because he knows every inch of the course. Whereas for me, I'm like, I just play wherever. So, but yeah, no, I've golfed for a long time, but this summer, too busy. Running books, I haven't had time.
I'll have to get in your schedule and schedule some time or something like that, and we'll go play fling golf or something.
Hey, sounds good. Let me know.
Sounds good. So, buddy, I got another question that I kind of thought of while the ad was playing. Let's say there's someone watching out here who has a book in mind, or like they're creating a book. They create a new book between now, like they either have it out now or they're in the process of creating it. How can they come to you with it? Like once it's published, once it's, physically in copy, what do they do for that?
I mean, honestly, the best thing to do is walk in the door and ask for me. I'm at the store like 90% of the time. So it's pretty easy to find me. But no, I mean, and it's one of those things now with the publishing industry where, getting a book published has become a lot easier. There's a lot less kind of gatekeepers there. But there's also a big self-published industry, which gets a little tricky on our end, the self-publishing world, because, you have people that say, hey, I wrote this book, I self-publish it. And, there is kind of a reason that there are editors and there are, some people there to kind of watch out, and kind of make sure that everything's right, and I don't want to say right, because that's not really the best word to describe it, but, make sure that a lot of those things that make a published book, right, are kind of covered. And, but if you have a book published, come see me. That's really the best way to do it. And come talk to me and I'll talk to you. I'll talk to anybody, for about anything. I'm chatty. It drives my wife insane how chatty I am. But, if I go out or I see people out, I'll talk to them. And if you come into the store and you say, hey, I want to talk to you about X, Y, and Z, I'll at the very least have a conversation with you. But if you got a published book, like Leanne Ruggiero is one where I didn't even know much about her book. And her aunt came in one day, 2 weeks ago and said, hey, my niece wrote a book. She's from Harbor Creek, it's published by the University of Massachusetts Press, which is a really prestigious press. It won an award with them. Just came out, you should look into it. And I was like, look into it. And she was like, oh, she's coming to the library, do a thing. So I emailed her. I was like, hey, you're coming to town, let's talk. I'll have your book. I'll carry it. I'll host a signing. I'll do whatever I can for you. So, and then other times people recommend people. There's an author whose name is slipping right now because I forgot it, based out of Cleveland, that wrote a book about Lake Erie. And my aunt messaged me and said, hey, I went to Edinburgh with this guy, many years ago, but she's like, I went to Edinburgh with this guy. I've known him for a long time. He wrote a new book. Reach out to him. I said, okay, of course, sure. So I sent him an email. So, it kind of goes both ways. I stumble onto people's books, but also a lot of time people will come in, and talk to me. Ann Silverthorne is one that did that. Ann Silverthorne is awesome. She's really involved in the local authors community. And she wrote a book about William du Maurier, who was, a civic servant here in town and did a lot of things. One of the things, among the millions of things he did when he was living was helping to get Ainsworth Field built, right? So Anne popped in the one day and said, hey, I wrote a book about William du Maurier. Would you carry it? Of course, and she signed them all and they're sitting on my shelf. So there's some really, really cool stuff out there. Really cool local authors. But I always tell people just pop in. I'm, about as friendly as you're going to find. So, at the very least we'll go to the back, we'll take it, we'll chat, about what's going on. So.
Brilliant. And where can our buddies watching this episode learn more about Werner Books?
Yeah. So probably the best thing right now is social media. So Facebook and Instagram, one of the things we decided when we took over the store was to really ramp up our Instagram presence. So follow us there. We also have a TikTok, which is a whole thing. We don't quite know what we're doing on it yet, but bear with us. We're going to get better at it. But there's a subculture of TikTok called Book Talk that's really popular, and we actually get a lot of really great ideas about, what books are really popular with people through TikTok. So we have a TikTok. We've talked to a couple other not local, but bookstores, owners. One's in Lakewood, New York, Good Neighbor Books. Bob over there is really active on TikTok. So we're kind of like watching him and being like, what are you doing? Oh, okay, cool. But we do that. We are getting a new website. So, our website right now is still active, but we're getting a new website. So that's the big announcement. We'll make that today because I don't think I've told anyone. We're getting a new website.
Exclusive.
Yeah, big exclusive. We're getting a new website. So I have Emma Steele. She is a Gannon student who I've worked with before, who's a book lover and also is phenomenally talented at what she does, digital marketing and otherwise. So she is actually building our new website kind of as we speak. I think she's working on some stuff today. So that should be going live, I think, next week, knock on wood, that everything goes smoothly. But yeah, we're working on that right now. So, when we do get that up, it'll be wernerbooks.com. The website will be the same. So.
Love it. Now, I got to ask, you're a fan of Buddycast. First off, how did you discover Buddycast? Like, how did you find us? How did you?
I think it must have popped up on Facebook. I'm not sure who you interviewed, but you popped up on Facebook and I said, oh, local podcast interviewed. Yeah, I can't remember. Honestly, I can't remember who it was. But I said, okay, I'll check it out. And I've listened to all your episodes. You have way too many, which is not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing, Nick. It's just, there's a lot. So, but I've kind of picked through and I listened to the one with Dave Gorman, obviously. The one with Mayor Schember was really, really good. The ones with John Persinger I thought were good. But I actually just listened to the two, and this is the tie-in, right? Of kind of listening to podcasts. I listened to the ones you did with the guys from Idiotville, which I love their podcast. I think those guys are doing a really good job, and they've been doing it for a long time. And then, so like the Stephen Tobolowsky episode's so good. Like you nailed that. Like I am, first of all, I was like, what? I remember like when I was going through the podcast feed, I said to myself, like, okay, he's interviewed Mayor Schember. Okay, sure, that makes sense. He's always interviewed, Jerry Clark. Sure, okay, that makes sense. But then I was like, Stephen Tobolowsky. How do you get Stephen Tobolowsky, or Sinbad? I'm like, how did you interview these? Like, that's crazy. Like, that's, Mark Maron level stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And the episodes were so good. So I just kind of stumbled onto this thing, and I love what you're doing. I just think the other thing is like we need way more positivity in the world, mm-hmm. and you're putting it out there. So thank you for doing that, because things can be bleak, and we don't need them to be. So
that's the point of Buddycast. That's the whole reason I started the show. Right there, it was just back in 2020. When everything was just going to pots. Everything was, you had the pandemic, you had the protests that were turning into riots. You had just, it seemed like every time and I work for the news I work for a news station, so I know everything that's going on behind the scenes. I know, like, you post the pandemic status for the day and 20 people right back to you telling you to go do unholy things to yourself. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, this world just needs a feel good story, just to feel good. So I kind of had this dream and just took it from there. I'm like, what about feel good stories to remind, like, ask the owner of a local bookstore why he wakes up every morning and does what he does. Like, what drives him, not just because he has to pay the bills on his house, but what drives him to say, I get to go to work today, rather than, I got to go to work today, I'll see you later,
Yeah, I get to wake up every day and wear sneakers and a t-shirt, which for me is like the number one thing I want to do with my life, is which is sad to say, but I get to work for myself, right? I mean, which is cool. But I also get to do something that I think matters. I hope matters, and being a part of like the Erie community, because Erie is so awesome. Like Erie, for the longest time, it's so frustrating when people would say, oh, one of my least favorite phrases in the world is "it's okay to love Erie." I actually hate that, because it's more than okay to love Erie. It's great to love Erie. You should love Erie. And I'm so glad I stayed, right? I'm so glad I'm involved and I did something, and bought a business that's, like, because we have some other friends that we collaborate on, actually other local business owners that are like some of our best friends. So for instance, Emily Ernest, who bought Glassgrowers Gallery, right down there by the art museum. She bought that about 2 years ago from Debbie, and Emily and I have been friends since 2014. We actually started working at Gannon on the same day, doing the same job. And she's one of my best friends. And it's one of those things where, she was actually after I had heard from Kelly, our other friend, who we spent a ton of time with, hey, you should buy this bookstore. Emily was the first person I called. So I said to my wife, I'm going to talk to Emily about it, because she had gone through the same thing. She had bought a legacy business here in town. And I talked to her. I said, hey, what can we do, to, can I do this? Is this possible? She said, absolutely. You have to do it. If everything lines up, you have to do it. I did it. I have no regrets. So for me, I was like, okay, so having that support there, and one of the things we collaborated on is if you come to the store, there's art from glass growers for sale on our walls, right? So that's a really cool collaboration we've done. And there's just really cool people out there. Like the other ones I always mention are Jeff and Steve over at Erie Ale Works, which if you're not buddies with those guys, they're about as fun as you can get. Ooh. But as we're hosting a book club at their place in September is the first one. Because we've been friends with them. We've been buddies with them for, I don't know. They're going on year 8, I think, like 7 years ago. So we were like, they're like not the first year, but like the second year. We started going up there, and, those guys are another group that I always, love working with and love talking to and collaborating with. And so when we bought the bookstore, it was the same conversation. Is this crazy? Do you guys think this is a good idea? And they were like, yeah, it's fine. We renovated our brewery in February of 2020. So anything's a good idea, right? So, it's nice knowing that there's a lot of people in Erie, and it seems like now the younger generation, right? Our generation, you and me and all these other people, Emily and these guys are all coming through and saying, hey, Erie, we can be better, right? And, it's really cool. Like right now, downtown is frustrating because there's no parking, but I know that on the horizon, right, there's really, really going to be cool stuff downtown, and we need it, right? I mean, it's time. So,
and I think they are building a new parking garage downtown too.
About time. I mean,
yeah.
It's gotta get up sooner, but no, I know it takes time, right? And finally, it seems like we're kind of, we're kind of getting it, in town of, okay, Erie can be better. Erie can do cool stuff, right? And it's awesome. I think the biggest kind of visual piece of that is what Patrick Fisher and Erie Arts and Culture are doing. With the murals. So I live on Westler. So if anyone's wondering, that's where I live. I don't really care. But Patrick, they just painted a mural on my block, not on my block, but on my street, up between 11th and 12th on Westler, which is gorgeous. So the public art that's being, kind of put into the world right now by that group, they have all these muralists coming in, and it's going to make Erie beautiful, right? Which is something it's not that hard. We have a gorgeous lakefront. We have, Presque Isle. We have all these things, but the city itself, has always been a little bit behind, but we're finally catching up, right? And I love to see it. I love to see the evolution and all the cool things that all these different groups are doing. It makes me happy, and it makes me, excited that, okay, I can be involved too through my business, right? Through a bookstore. There's a lot of cool stuff going on. So, I hate the phrase "it's okay to love Erie" because it's great to love Erie.
It is
love Erie, right?
It is great to love Erie, my buddy. And now, buddy, I've got 2 more questions for you.
Yeah.
The first one is brought to us by our buddy Jonas Kane at #Positivity, who wants to know, in your own words, what does it mean to be someone's buddy?
Ooh, that's a good one. I should be prepared because I know you sent this to me, but I thought way too often. I think the biggest thing is being there, right, for your buddies, right? So, if something happens in your life, right, that's either, huge, right, or even small, right? You have a group of people or somebody that can reach out to you and send you a text or send you, give you a call and say, I hope you're okay, and that's really all that, that's what really matters more than anything. And, I don't want to be a downer, but we have a couple cats, and we had a foster cat that we were fostering through the Humane Society, which, talk about a group that does great work. And our foster cat passed away last week. So it was really tragic and sad. I mean, he was not doing well, but still, anytime that happens. But the people that reached out to us and shot us a text, hey, heard about Thomas, heard about your cat, hope you're doing well. That's being a buddy, right? That's somebody saying, hey, I know you went through this thing. How can, we, help, is there anything we can do? Right. So that's always my take, is being there, but also, being a buddy is someone that you can laugh with and have fun with. That's the other positive side of it, right? Is somebody that you can go and you can get dinner with, you can get a drink with, you can go have fun with. So, yeah.
Exactly. A great answer. You're absolutely right. I always say a friend is someone who, like you said, you can get a drink with, catch up, hey, have some fun, have a few laughs. A buddy's the one when you go through that tragic situation, when you go through something that to someone else, someone else might say, it's just this, or yeah, you'll get, they're the ones who say, no, he's not going to just get over this. We're going to help him, you know?
Do you need a hug, either virtually or in person?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And the final question I have for you is what we call the ultimate Buddycast buddy question, which is brought to us by our buddies at Harbor Ridge, which is, what is your advice to anyone who wants to own a bookstore one day?
Oh my. The number one piece of advice is just do it. Just go for it, right? I mean, that was the thing that when I was not looking to buy the store, because once again, I wasn't looking to buy a bookstore, right? A year ago almost, right? But I, for me, it was just talking to the people, talking to your buddies, right? More than anything, right? I literally talked to my buddies about it. And I said, hey, is this a good idea? And then, I could have just said, no, too much work. I don't want to do it. But I said, no, I want to do this. Like, this is something I want to do. I've always wanted to do something like this. Let's go for it. So, that's part of it. The other thing is read. You got to read everything. I hate to say it. That's a big part of owning a bookstore. But, the third thing is have people you trust, right? And luckily, I have my wife who, is my best friend, and I trust, and she helps me out through everything. But, also, the staff we took on, they're great. So if you want to own a bookstore, there's really good resources out there. I'm part of both the American Booksellers Association and the New Atlantic Independent Booksellers Association, which are really great organizations. And they helped me a lot. I actually took a class with them on how to run a bookstore, which was pretty cool. In fact, right now the conference is going on, and, it's all right. I can catch up. It's all on Zoom, so it's kind of nice because I can just watch the videos later.
Nice.
But the other great thing is there's always resources locally if you want to open any kind of business. So I worked with the Small Business Development Center at Gannon, which, at the time I was working with Jacob Jones, who now runs Camp Studios, right? You talk about, somebody doing cool things in town, Camp Studios. But he, there's that. But then also the city, Jen Hoffman with the city, who's the business development director, worked with us on some things. So there's resources and there's people available that you can find to open any kind of business. But bookstore specifically, it's like, just do it. If you want to do something, do it, right? You had a dream, and you did it. Here you are. I had a dream I wanted to do something, and here I am doing this. So, don't hesitate, be confident. If it all lines up, great, and if not, you want people there to catch you,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's great advice. Just do it. Follow your dreams, follow your heart. That's what you and I did. You're absolutely right. That's what you and I did. And look where we are.
Yep.
Well, buddy, thank you so much for being a buddy here on Buddycast. It was a true pleasure. Stick around for a minute afterwards. We'll chat. But thank you for stopping on Buddycast and promoting your business. I'm very excited to go check it out. And before we end this episode, I have one favor to ask you. Whatever you do today, tomorrow, next week, next month, heck, even next year, Go be someone's buddy.
Thanks, Nick.
Alrighty. For all my buddies out there, this is my buddy Kyle. Please check out Werner Books if you're in the area. I'm your host, Nick Sorensen. We'll catch you all next time here on everybody's favorite show, Buddycast.
Well, the days are going fast, buddy, we've got to make them last, buddy, before they